Welcome to completing the name and address screen. Once you've determined the filing status, you're going to go ahead and enter that right in the box. I'm going to go ahead and drag over the actual Drake software. Might be easier. So filing status, as you notice, first of all these green highlights, these are what we call flagged fields. These are important fields that you need to verify information. So this is an existing returning client, so all the data pre-filled in, but I have all these green fields that I need to verify just to make sure nothing's changed. Okay, if this wasn't a returning client, everything would be pretty much blank other than the social and their name is what you keyed in when you were creating the return. So to begin with, filing status. So you just would select in the drop down. Once you determine it, it's either going to be single, married filing joint, married filing separate, head of household, or qualifying widower. Those 5 filing statuses. And IRS codes them with 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Then over here, Drake says this is married filing joint. So then, as you notice, it's not green anymore because now I've determined it is still joint return. So the flag is now eliminated. Then we go down here, we have the first and last name of the taxpayer, middle initial, suffix would be junior or senior, or the third or second. Date of birth, and you can key that in, just 0704 62. You have to put in 1962. Date of death, if it happens to be client that died or spouse died. Occupation. Daytime phone number, we want to make sure the reason these are flagged, daytime and cell phone number. We want the daytime phone number entered. It doesn't actually necessarily have to be. This is how I can reach them during the day. It's just I need a phone number to call them. I actually only want one phone number, and typically I want their best one, which is going to be their cell phone. So usually the cell phone and the daytime is going to be the same. And the reason we want you to put the daytime in is because this number actually imports into Atom, and then I'm able to see that on specific screens in Atom. Whereas if I just put a cell phone number, not a daytime phone number, this number won't actually display on specific pages of Atom. So unfortunately, you need to put them both in. So I'm really looking for a cell phone number, and then just put that in both places. If they really have a specific number during the day they want you to call, go ahead and put it here. But then try to get the cell phone number so we can send them a text, as long as they've confirmed it's okay for us to send text. If not, we'll show you an add-on where you can shut that off. Don't worry about best time to call or fax number. I'm not concerned with that. Email address, if you can get the email address, that's great, because we're trying to communicate with the client via email, or if they forget their password on the client portal, they verify who they are by using their email address. So if you don't have the email address, they can't verify themselves, and they got to call our office to get the password. So if you have the email, gather the email and enter it in here, because a lot of this data is actually going to import into Atom. Then we have address, and again, the reason I highlight this stuff is because it may change, and if they're a new client, obviously I want you to fill this in. So address, make sure that they haven't moved. And if they didn't move, but you need to get rid of the green, how to do that is just by hitting the F4 key. So F2 will put the green back, F4 will eliminate the green. And then to move through here, I can use my mouse or I can use my tab. Tab key sometimes moves you quicker. Shift tab moves you backwards. Or if you want to go quickly and you're like from the bottom all the way to the top, you just use your mouse and move it. But normally you want to use your tab or your return key. Return key does the same thing, because then there's certain macros built in within software that if you use a mouse to move, you might bypass the macro and then cause you to do more keystroking. So you're going to find yourself in Drake, it's quicker to use the keyboard once you get used to it with their special function keys and everything. So if they're married, of course, it's going to pop over here. I'm going to enter the spouse's name, social, birth date, occupation if they have it. If they're stay-at-home parent, then it would just be homemaker or housewife if it's a woman. You want to enter the phone number, you can, but typically I don't enter the spouse's phone numbers. I just look at the daytime and the cell phone number on the taxpayer side, and I'll call, if I'm calling for either one, I'll just call the one number. I don't want to have a lot of numbers to try to call someone. It's just too hard to have multiple numbers to try to locate people. they don't have an apartment, F4, get rid of the green. This zip code right here, so if I were to change this to 489 or 48837, you notice it switched the city to Grand Ledge, so there's a macro built in there. It's going to put the county, it's going to change the city. But if you were to use a mouse, 48911, and I use my mouse to click the next field, oh, I guess it still did it. So they must have made a change. Drake made a change there. So the macro will do it. But either way, you're quicker to use the keyboard than use your mouse. If you find yourself using your mouse every time you move, so I type Michigan, and I go zip code, then I use my mouse to go to the county. I mean, it's going to take you forever just to fill out a screen. So use your keyboard. Your fingers stay on the keyboard, and you move a lot quicker. Now, there's a lot of fields on here. If they're blank, that means you don't have to fill anything in. Okay, so within anything we teach in this book, this basic manual, if I don't show it to you, that most likely you don't have to do anything. And so that's why I'm not filling your head with extra things to learn. So resident state, you need to tell them what state they typically are earning their income in. So this person's a resident of Michigan. That's most likely all the ones you're going to be doing. Lansing or Jackson, depends on what city they live in. If they live in, then they have to pay city taxes. Now, we're going to discuss later why cities are going to be tricky. You might think you live in the city, but you don't really live in the city. Again, F4, get rid of the green. School district code, that's just saying, this is for state of Michigan purposes. We'll cover that in the Michigan class. F4, get rid of the green. Well, I'll go over this. So if they're at the city of Lansing, if you hit the drop down, you just look for Lansing School District, which typically if you're in Lansing, mostly Lansing School District, Waverly, Grand Ledge, East Lansing. So you can find your code right here. An easy way to find it if you do Control-Shift-S. So Control-Shift-S all at the same time. This box will pop up and I can type in Grand Ledge. Search, and then there it is. So it's code 2306. I just select it, hit OK, and then it'll populate in there. And prepare number, it's going to default to whatever prepare number you keyed in when you logged in. So I just hit 9. That's another thing. You either can hit F4 to get rid of the green, or you can actually type it in. So I just hit the 9, which is just as easy as hitting F4, get rid of my green. I'll come back up here, get rid of the green. But if I were to retype a phone number in here, say its phone number's changed, 517-323-4806. So now it's not green because I entered a new number. F4 to get rid of the green. So you want to get rid of all your green, otherwise we cannot electronically file the tax return. So I got rid of all my green on this page. And then to get off the page, I can just hit escape and I go back one. So this is all you need to do to fill in the name and address screen. Now there are some quick links in here that we'll talk about later, like this is HC is going to go to the healthcare coverage screen. I'm going to move back over. So when we talk about health insurance, it's a quick link to that screen. Oh, one more thing, if the taxpayer didn't live with the spouse, so they're married but they didn't live together, so we talked about that would be head of household filing status, didn't live together the last 6 months of the year. So there's different codes in there. The 2 means they didn't live together the last 6 months of the year, I believe. Nope, 1 is the last 6 months of the year. Number 2 is they didn't live with a spouse at all 1 day during the year. So there's different tax consequences based on these, whether they didn't live together or not. So you just want to make sure you select that. Typically it's going to be number 1. That's what you're going to encounter. So if they're head of household and they live together, and I'll show you how we'll point that out when we do a client information sheet. And scroll down further. And that's all we need to worry about. We're filling out the name and address screen. Thank you.